Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner and I have a returning guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your secret identity to the masses?
No.
That's fine. We could just play a guessing game.
I think I'm probably more fun when nobody knows who I am.
Well, let's see. Okay, a guessing game. What are you wearing right now?
I don't know how that helps you guess who I am, but
It might.
I'm wearing a red t-shirt and gray sweatpants.
Okay, red. What characters have red?
It's got nothing to do with Star Trek. I've never actually, that's one universe I still have not permeated.
Well, isn't
So,
the whole thing with
no
Star Trek
red
if
shirt.
you wear the red shirt you die?
Right.
Isn't
And
that the
that's what
thing?
I'm saying is, that's what people are going to jump to. And it's like, nope, that doesn't count because that's one of the few universes I have not actually cracked open.
Dang it. Well,
So,
maybe one day in a fan
yeah, maybe
spin-off
one
or an
day.
official thing. You never know. They always reboot everything and remake everything nowadays, so.
Well, Star Trek is also has like seven different series that are on the web that are all unofficially official Star Trek, so
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
there.
I've been seeing those get a lot of traction, but since they don't relate with you, we don't want to dwell on them. So maybe you could give us a better idea by talking about maybe a project you're working on that you're able to talk about with getting attacked by NPCs.
You of all people ought to know that voice actors these days can't talk about anything they're working on.
Okay, that's fair, but
I mean,
recently,
it's gotten to the point where it's really kind of silly. I mean, I understand people don't want to, spoiler alerts and they don't want to spoil the story and things like that. But at a certain point, when you've got actors involved in your project or any artist involved in your project, isn't it a good thing when they get on social media and they hype it up?
I think so too. In fact, I think we're seeing a trend of that lately, especially on social media. For example, there was a game franchise that just came out from NIS America called Danganronpa,
Uh,
and they're already announcing the cast for the second one, and it doesn't come out until fall.
yep,
So as soon as they got the clearance and the announcement was out of the way, they were like, if the cast wants to claim who they are, go claim who you are. And I think that's awesome.
that is, unfortunately, and hopefully this will happen in the future. Companies are, they're insisting we don't say anything, but they're not being as diligent as they should be about getting back to a representation or getting back directly to us and saying, okay, cat's out of the bag, let it go.
Yeah, I
You
really
know,
wish that happened more in the industry just because I think you guys have,
it,
a good
it,
fan base and a lot of advertising power.
yeah, there's that. And, every now and then I like to have things on my IMDb page, but when we work on things and it's under title A and then it's released later under title B and we never find out about that. I've got a couple dozen video games which are not listed to my credits because they came out with a different title, and of course, they've got dozens of actors in it, and they only put six, seven, eight, whatever it is, actually on the credits of the game. So, it's like, well, I'd like it if we work that into our next contract because I'd like to get some credit. I'd like people to know what I do.
Oh no, I
And
agree. I recently played a game and I was waiting for the vocal cast at the very end. The Japanese vocal cast, they had no mention of any of the characters. They
yep,
weren't listed at the end, but they listed the guy who made the English website. I was so
well, that's
confused.
that's like, for instance, on a different level, you go see a movie nowadays, and you could have had seven different writers writing the script at different points during the making of the film, and they will have credits for the person who drove the star to the set, the co-star's hair person, the on-set liaison. They'll have credits for somebody who worked in the accountant's office, or whoever was the lead chef on the catering on set, and all these things, and yet they'll only put two of the writers up there. And I just don't get stuff like that. I don't, here's somebody who actually worked a bit more directly on the film, and we, the public, don't even find out that the original story, or somewhere along the lines, say Shane Black worked on one, on one draft of the screenplay. Even if only two of his ideas make it in, as a movie fan, I'd still like to know he was involved. And yet we sit there for 7 or 8 minutes looking at things that I guess in my own snobby way I view as being totally irrelevant to the making of the piece of art I just watched.
No, I can agree. I mean, when we're voice actor hunting, because sometimes we can tell somebody's voice right away and we're like, oh, that's so and so. But other times we need the credits to help us, or we need to literally go directly to the source. Okay, well, we know so and so directed. We literally have to go ask the director or
Right.
send a message to the company to even ask who was involved in the project. And that makes me so sad because you guys work so hard.
Yeah, and because we, unlike being in the theater, we don't get applause at the end of our performance. Um, it would be nice if, when games first came out, it seemed like every game had a little paper instruction booklet, and then in the back they would list the cast, and that was great. It was a way to be able to, I don't know, show my father who doesn't play video games, look, I'm working. You know, it's these little things. We just like to have markers in our lives that prove that we were here and that we contributed.
No,
You know?
I can agree with that. I mean, so the listeners have a better idea of who you are. Is there any
Yes.
projects that recently came out that you can talk about?
Well, I guess I can mention that Blizzard has a new game coming out called Heroes of the Storm, which is bringing several characters from their three major universes, being Diablo, World of Warcraft, and StarCraft. So they've brought some of these varied characters together to battle each other one on one. And so the character that I was fortunate enough to play in StarCraft, who literally and figuratively bit the bullet, is back for more. I can also mention I'm speaking of Blizzard. I'm involved in Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls, which I believe is released tomorrow. And I have been allowed to say that I will be in the new version of Elder Scrolls.
Well, I think everyone is super excited about, the Heroes of the Storm just because that type of genre of game is like getting this huge popularity boost.
Now, what are those called now? Like MOPA or
MOBA,
something? Okay, you know,
MOBA.
right, right, right. Oh, right, MOBA. Right, 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 right. I was thinking of MOPORGs or every time I think about the massive multiplayer online role-playing game, for some reason my brain always switches over to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So it's like a bunch of the same letters, so I get all confused.
Actually, I think that's an amazing comparison, to be honest. That's a good way to remember for some people out there. Or get it
They're so
completely confused.
close.
They are pretty close. I never made that connection before.
And yes, thanks to Netflix, I am having a lot of fans from a lot of people bringing up Power Rangers when I go to conventions, and after almost a decade of silence, it's kind of nice, even though every now and then the people who are coming up and saying, "I loved watching Power Rangers when I was a kid," they're they're 30 now, so it's like, wait a second.
Yeah, that kind of must be like, oh man, I feel old. But at the same time, it must be kind of an honor to have people remember that
Well,
show
absolutely.
throughout their entire life.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely. I think any actor who fights against being remembered or being appreciated, again, I think they're doing it wrong. I was having a discussion with another actor recently who was bemoaning getting typecast. And I said, "You'll forgive me if this seems disrespectful, but the best part of being typecast is being cast."
Hmm.
You know?
I can agree with that. Not only that, it means that, someone is still recognizing your skill, like that you had 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Or even 2 years ago, or whatever it is. I mean, whether it's oh, I hate when I blank on names and I've got their faces right in front of me. Um, the actor who was basically cast as everybody evil in the 1980s. As a matter of fact, he played evil in Time Bandits.
Oh
Uh,
gosh.
David Warner. I
Okay, thank
usually
you.
when I usually when I talk about actors long enough, I get their name. But David Warner, for a little while, I mean, he was Jack the Ripper in Time After Time. He was the embodiment of evil in in Time Bandits. He's was evil Klingons. He was evil this, evil that. And at a certain point, yeah, people are going to think of him because he's the face of evil. But isn't it better to be the face of evil than the face of unemployment?
I think so. I'd rather be the face of evil and making a ton of money than,
Well,
not
even if it's,
making
you know
any.
what? Here's the thing. As an artist, I mean, forgive me. I don't mean to be rude or anything, but as an artist, a lot of us, if we didn't have bills to worry about, we wouldn't care two figs in a handbag about making any money. The only reason we ever worry about that or making a lot of money or whatever it is just so we can continue playing and making art, and doing it. It's you hear these stories about movie stars who do big budget films so they can make their seven figures, you know, and then they'll be able to take the freedom and do smaller, more artistic films. Jeff Daniels is a perfect example, and he even says this in interviews, how he'll do a big Hollywood film so that he can support his theater that he runs in Michigan. You know, I'm never going to turn down if somebody offers me a lot of money, but hopefully what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to produce a play, or I'm going to do an independent project, or maybe I'll be able to afford to do some summer stock for a few months and take time away from voiceover and just do 99 seat theater or whatever it is. Most of us are only seeking a paycheck because we need that to survive. We're not in this business to get the elusive 5 figure, 6 figure, 7 figure, 8 figure paycheck.
Well, to
You
be
know?
fair, most actors aren't going to make those figures.
Well, sure, but most people look at themselves as being special. Most people look at themselves as being unique, and we are to a certain extent. But that doesn't change the odds. That doesn't change the potentiality of the outcome. And a lot of what good-hearted people, a lot of dreamers out there sit there and go, I only need one big break. It's like, you're right, you do only need that one big break, but do you have what it takes to hang out until you're 52 when that big break shows up? you know do you understand what kind of dues you may have to pay until that big break rears its head?
I'm
And sometimes we don't even recognize the big break when it's staring us in the face. Did Harrison Ford know that he was getting his big break when he was going to help George Lucas audition other actors for this movie called Star Wars? Harrison Ford didn't audition for that movie. He was there reading with other actors, helping them to audition for this job. And it was only because he did that to help out that they saw him and went, wait a second, what are we doing? Why are Why are we auditioning Kurt Russell? This guy's great.
I will say, to be fair, from a personal point of view, I feel like even when you get to that big break, you still have to work. You can't just sit on it.
Oh
And
no, absolutely, absolutely. You still have to, right? Nobody, you know. Harrison Ford's had a great career since 1977. I can guarantee you, he didn't just sit around waiting for Indiana Jones to be created, developed, written, and proposed to him. He didn't wait for Air Force One. He didn't wait for Mosquito Coast. He went out and he kept pushing. And that's what we have to do. I mean, I don't think you're going to see Daniel Day-Lewis in a movie and feel like, boy, he's phoning this one in, isn't he? I
that's
mean,
true.
3 Oscars, you would think if anybody can just kick back, it's going to be this guy, but there's nothing that any of us have ever read to imply that that's the case.
No, I agree with you. I feel like this is and I feel like a lot of fans, especially people who are aspiring, I'm sure you've, run into people who are, they want to voice act in either one specific thing like games or anime. I'm sure you've run into this type of set of people who just want to do that at conventions, and I feel like
Yeah.
there's this disconnect because they don't realize that there's, a work
Well, there's
ethic that needs to
also
be
there's
developed.
also the disconnect of the people who say, I want to do voiceover, and you say, great, where do you think you fit in? Which part of voiceover? And they have no concept.
Hmm.
They don't understand that people can do voiceover and make a decent living and never have anybody in the general public ever hear their work. There are people who do very specialized audiobooks or who are industrial narrators. So they'll do a lot of training videos or a lot of internal corporate videos. So the general public doesn't see them. And so the uninitiated, the uneducated may sit there and say, this guy's not famous. I don't want to do what he does.
But it's not
You know,
really about fame, it's about doing something you love.
that's according to you, and that's according to me. But that may be different for the outsider who wants to get into the industry. Everybody has their own reasons and their own pursuits, and I think it would be naive for me to say that no one pursues voiceover with the idea of fame and fortune.
No, I can agree with that. I mean,
Uh,
I
we had Chris Rock out there telling everybody, you can say one line and get paid $1 million.
I'm
You
sure that
know,
helped.
oh, that was just great. You know, but but even then, it's not as simple as he made a joke out of. And there are people out there who knew that, who know that, and that comment didn't bother them. And then there are people who think he oversimplified and that bothered them. And then there are other people that don't realize he oversimplified it. And so they're going to stand in their closet with a tape deck and record something and send it out as a demo. But you know what? Neither you nor I can say that that demo won't ever end up on the right desk at the right company on the right day in the right hour.
That's
It
true.
does happen. I wouldn't recommend betting the farm on it, but I'm not going to be the person to say that never happens.
No, you're right. I mean, I feel like, especially, in this job that I've had for about 4, almost 5 years, and talking to a lot of the guests, everyone enters the industry in so many different ways. Sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's connection, sometimes it's just a
Well,
coincidence.
right. And for instance, when I teach or I'm doing a seminar or I'm doing a panel at a convention and somebody asks me, "Well, how did you break into voiceover?" I'll say that question is irrelevant because the world I broke into doesn't exist anymore. And so for people to ask how Jim Cummings broke in, or how Rob Paulson broke in, or how Frank Welker broke in, or how Steve Bloom broke in, or how Darren Norris broke in, or how Travis Willingham broke in, They each have their different stories, and those facts and figures fit with the time that they did it. You know, there was a day and age when if you weren't available to come into the room and read, you never got considered. Well, technology has made that different now.
Well, I will say, because the fans know this, every time we get a guest on for the first time, I do ask them what got them into acting because I find that it avoids that question of what advice would you give new people who want to get into voiceover? Because when there's so many different answers from so many different time periods, I feel like people can, take the time and be able to form an answer that way by listening to these stories, almost like listening to a history book in a way.
Well, there is that, but you're asking from a different standpoint than your average fan who is only asking the question, how did you break in, for one reason. And I think we all know what that is. You
To
know,
follow their footsteps.
it's give me a shortcut. Give me a shortcut and tell me how to get where you are. Well, the shortcut a lot of times is, you know, I spent 15 years doing local theater. And living out of my car as I did stand up through the Pacific Northwest for 7 years. And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear it took me 20 years to get my to get my one big break. You know, the the old adage of, you know, there are no overnight successes, I think is still true. You know, it may appear to be an overnight because, the one thing, finally that one job that gave them that one scene that they had that one funny line, and everybody around the world heard it, saw it, emulated it, whatever it is. You know, that was a lot of years in the making.
Yeah, I was
You
about to
know,
say a lot of the newer kids, on the block is what I call the newer voice actors who
right?
are kind of just kickstarting their career. They've been practicing or they've been honing their skills, for 3 years, 6 years, sometimes 8 to 10 years or longer. Maybe
Right.
since they were three, and they've just been
Sure,
acting
and
their
and
entire
and
life.
and a lot of us who have been pursuing this for 20, 25 years, and have been paying our dues in the profession for 15, 20, 25 years, we also started doing it when we were 3 or 4 years old. You know, it's the old, we are more alike than you think, and we are more different than you think. Both at the same time.
Definitely. And I think for the fans out there, we're going to take a very short break, but keep it tuned to 91.8 The Fan, where we play everything you want and nothing you don't. Hey, everybody out there, you're still tuned to 91.8 The Fan, and my special guest is still here, alive and breathing. At least I hope he is.
As far as I know. By the
Okay.
way, have you told anybody who I am yet,
No,
or
no,
have
we
you
haven't. We've let
guessed?
the live chat has guessed it though.
Oh, okay. Well, because they probably read it on Twitter.
That and they read it on our website. It's not really
Okay,
that secret.
makes
But
it a little easier.
do you want to introduce yourself to the fans just in case?
Huh? What?
Do you want to introduce yourself to the fans just in case?
Hi, I'm Neil.
Hi, Neil.
Okay,
I feel like it's like an AA meeting when we do that. Hi, Neil.
something
What's going
like
on?
that.
Yeah. So, for the fans out there that want to stalk you though and keep up to date with what you're doing, I know that you can be found on Facebook and Twitter, but what exactly are your Facebook names?
No, it's Neil Kaplan. Just look for the fan page, not my personal page. I tend to funnel people over to the fan page, and also fans can follow me on Twitter at Kneecap, which is Nekap. So it's like Neil Kaplan minus letters. But and I usually let people know when I'm on my way to a convention, and I say, show me that you're following me on Twitter or you're a fan on Facebook, and I'll have a little thank you gift for you at the convention. So,
Aw,
you know,
that's cute.
Well, it's like you're doing me the favor of joining the fan page as opposed to, insisting on being on my personal page. And look, I tend to have strong opinions about a lot of things, and I don't want my personal beliefs, my religious beliefs, my political beliefs, or anything like that. I don't want that to stand in the way of somebody enjoying Naruto or StarCraft or Diablo, or maybe they'll enjoy it more because they'll get to kill me. I don't know, but I want to be able to live my life truthfully in my space without infringing on somebody else's enjoyment of something that I worked on.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. But for the fans out there, do you have any conventions coming up soon?
I do. I actually in 2 weeks will be down in Australia for Supernova. So I'll be down there for a couple of weeks visiting the fans down in Melbourne and in Gold Coast. And I have a couple of Transformer conventions coming up, but I have not been allowed to share that information as of yet.
Well, you must be super excited to head on over to Australia. You get to see the kangaroos.
Well, yeah, that's always fun, but I've been there a couple of times and I've made a few friends, and probably more excited about seeing them. And I'm also a big fan of a lot of different things. I was down there a couple of years ago doing a convention tour with Larry Hagman, and so I was nerding out for 2 weeks, just always listening to every story he had to offer, and so I enjoy that sort of thing. I met Billy Boyd when I was down in Brisbane a couple of years ago, and that was a really kind of fun. And so this time around, I guess Lucy Lawless and Michael Rooker are going to be there. So I'm going to have to spend 2 weeks not just going, I thought you were great and 8 men out, you know, or just sitting there and going, Merle. It's it's
I'm
tough,
glad
but
you have those fanboy moments too.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that makes me a slightly better guest at a convention, because I really do, try to spend every moment indulging the golden rule. I try to treat everybody at a convention the way I'd want to be treated. Now, sometimes that means that people have to wait in line to get something signed or to say hello. They have to wait a little bit longer. But in turn, it also means that I take my time with them. I look everybody in the eye. I answer questions. I tell them stories. I ask them how they're enjoying the convention, what's been the best thing they've seen, because I'm stuck at my table. I haven't been able to go to the panels or see the booths. So this is my way of, kind of absorbing what the convention is like. And besides which, it's I sit there in a little room in a box talking, you know, and it's like at a certain point you wonder whether any of this stuff is popular. You wonder whether it's appreciated. Am I doing a good job? Are people enjoying it? So when people come up and have nice things to say, it's like, that's awesome. That's great. That's payment to my soul. It's a good thing. So to think that I'm not going to give somebody the time and I'm going to rush them off. I had an occasion where I was invited to the set of Star Trek 4, and, Shatner was as rude as he could possibly have been. And it broke my heart. I mean, I had been at that point a Trekkie for as long as I could remember. And from that moment on, he killed it. He ruined it. I was no longer a fan.
Oh.
And it was terrible, but it was also educational for me. And I've said, in interviews, if anybody catches me pulling a Shatner, you have my permission to punch me in the head. Because I
Well,
never,
I will make sure that's recorded so everybody has it.
no, I mean it. If I ever treat anybody like that, It's like, you have my permission. I'm on record. I never want to treat somebody like that. I don't take up any more space on this planet than anybody else does. I'm no more important than anybody else. Conversely, I'm also no less important than anybody else. You know? Um, so I take my time with people, and that includes the people that waited in line to tell me that I'm not their favorite Optimus Prime. I usually say, that's okay. Peter Cullen was my favorite Optimus Prime too. What do you know? We share that in common. You know, it's one of the reasons that I did a decent impression of the guy, is because he was so good. His voice imprinted itself on my brain. But those people waited to tell me that, and it was important for them to tell me that, and I owe it to them to let them say it.
I think that's a great way to look at it. I mean, with the staff, when we're ever guests at a convention, I'm always very con mom. Essentially, everybody has to act a certain way, make sure you're professional. Every staff member you see, you better introduce yourself and shake hands. And, all of them are like, "What are you doing, mom?" But I, as far as I'm concerned, I feel like when you're at a convention, you're there to meet people and to make relations with people and to have a good time and to make sure that the people you're meeting are also having a good time. It's almost, if you don't mind me saying, it's almost like a customer service job in a way. But
Yeah,
like, I feel like you should be enjoying and you shouldn't be having a bad day because you got the chance to go there and you got the chance to meet all these people and to interact with them, and that should be fun on its own.
absolutely, absolutely. But conversely, I am a person. I did work a full week, several hundred miles away. Had to drive to the airport, find a parking space, get myself in, get on the plane, cram myself into that tiny seat, eat the horrible food, all of these things, so I could make the journey and be there with you. And I think that deserves a little bit of respect and a little bit of kindness.
Oh, I
So again,
agree.
it's like when I get somebody who takes that for granted, and throws a lot of attitude, I can throw it back every now and then, you know, and kind of point that out. And I just don't think we have to. I don't think we have to treat each other like that. You know?
Exactly. There's no reason for it. People should be having a good time. There shouldn't be really all this negativity. For example, we've hosted dances and things like that before, and we've had
Uh-huh.
people like start getting kind of violent moshy and like running into tables and almost our equipment, and we have to be like, dude, chill. Have
Right.
fun.
I,
What are you
I,
doing?
I, I hate I hate to be a buzzkill, because really I do. I wish I wasn't forced into this situation, but can you possibly have a good time without stomping all over other people's good times?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Well, for the listeners out there, is there anything else you want to tell them? Anything else you want to promote? Words of wisdom, dating advice, predictions for the end of the world?
I leave the dating advice to Spike Spencer. That's his thing. He's very good at it. Um, so definitely, How Not to Kill Your Date. I would recommend people check that out. He actually has some practical advice, and presents it in a fairly humorous way. Um, Stuff like that, I usually just go with the old golden rule: treat people the way you'd want to be treated. Try putting yourselves in another person's shoes for a couple of minutes, and kind of envision how that might feel. Um, you know, uh, Look, we only have a limited time getting to circle that ball of fire in the sky. Try to have as good a time as you can, but as frequently as possible, not at somebody else's expense. You know,
No, I know. I think that's great advice.
I think that's the only advice I try to give people is, let's be a little nicer to each other. You know, it's like this. My birthday was a couple of weeks ago. I had just had surgery.
Oh, happy late
Uh,
birthday.
well, thank you. And so on my fan page, I wrote, you know, today's my birthday. If you want to get me something, this is what I would really like. Go out and do something nice to a complete stranger. You know, buy somebody you want to buy me something for my birthday, buy the person behind you in line, buy their cup of coffee. You know, or walk up to a stranger and say something nice. Give somebody a compliment with no ulterior motive other than just saying something nice. And let's see if we can't get a little chain reaction going of of good tidings to each other. And, you know, really, and to be honest with you, you know, I'll have times that people will come up to my table at a convention and they'll say to me, I'd love to get this picture, but I spent all my money on Pocky. I spent all my money on boba tea. I spent all my money on this and that. I spent my money to get in here. The only thing I have left is my bus fare. And the last thing I ever want anybody to do is walk away from my table disappointed. So I always bring like some pictures that I print on regular paper at my off my home printer, you know, so I have something that I can sign that didn't cost me a lot, or I'll ask every now and then if I get a good feeling about the person, I'll say I'll make you a deal between now and the 4th of July, and that's, you know, come on, that's 3.5 months away. You got plenty of time. I want you to do 10 hours of volunteer work, you know, or I'll come up with a number and I'll ask them, I'll say, you know, check in with me on my fan page. Let me know when you've completed your volunteer hours, but that's what we'll do. Okay. You pay for this picture by promising you'll volunteer. And, you know, if I can make the world a better place even by 1/1000th of 1% by signing something or saying something in a character's voice, then I consider myself fortunate that I can do that. You know, if I can,
That's
I mean,
super cool. I'm not
you
gonna
know,
lie.
I played Optimus Prime, and I would go up and I meet people and say, you know, Autobots, transform and roll out. And they'd sit there and, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's pleasant. Oh, that's lovely. You know, and it's like totally unimpressed, totally. And not that I'm doing that because I want them to sit there and go, oh my gosh, I'm in the presence of an Optimus Prime. Oh, I'm not doing it for that reason. But you know, I like putting smiles on people's faces. Well, then I did StarCraft, and I got edited into this amazing trailer that Blizzard did, where there's all of this action and all of this energy, and it builds to this crescendo, which ends with a close up of my character saying, "Hell, it's about damn time." And people hear this line and they, you know, they've heard it at conventions, they've heard it at BlizzCon, they've heard it online, they cheer, and it's because of the trailer that Blizzard put together. I mean, they edited it so well and it's so much fun. But yet when I meet fans and they want to hear the voice, and it doesn't really work that well because it's one of these things because of the pitch and you can't hear it from far away. So I'll say, okay, there are two of you, and I'll grab one of them, and I'll say to the other one, watch their face. And I'll go up to the first one, and I'll do that in their ear. And inevitably, 99% of the times when I go, hell, it's about damn time, you know, these are grown people. These are grown men, grown women, you know, and they will literally go weak in the knees and just, oh my gosh. And it's such a visceral reaction. And it makes me so happy because, you know, I tried doing that with Optimus Prime and people's reaction was, yeah, that's nice. You know, and it's like I get it. They want to meet Peter Cullen. They want to meet the Optimus Prime. I get that. You know, it's okay. But in this case, I am the Tychus Finley. And when I can say words and make somebody that happy, even for that infinitesimally short amount of time, that's pretty freaking cool in my book.
I agree it is, and I love the passion at which you talk about that sort of subject. So I will say for the fans out there, they seem to love having you back, and we did as well. So thank you very much for joining
Thank
us again.
you. Thank you, everybody. And, invite me back any old time. As more things come out of the haze of the NDA, I can talk about it. You know, the only thing I will say is, you know, anime wise, I do love me characters who have face masks.
Well, you don't
Th-
have any lip flaps to match.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I've been having such a great time doing Naruto these last couple of years, and why I love doing Prime, because they gave me the capacity to act over having to match flaps, and that's just something I relish, you know.
Well, I can
So,
see why. And for the listeners out there, if they missed any of this interview, don't fret. It can be up on the website within the next few days. So keep your eyes
yeah,
peeled to 918thefan.com and your ears tuned to 91.8 The Fan, where we play everything you want and nothing you don't.